Hi guys. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Patricia Crislip, and there's two things that we have to get out of the way. First of all, one is you'll have to excuse the way I look. I do not hardly ever wear makeup or do my hair or dress up. I just sort of look like this and wear yoga pants or stretch pants, whatever works for the day. And second, you are going to have to ignore the glare in my glasses because I did not get the anti-glare treatment on my glasses and I am regretting it. See? It is terrible. So, like I said, my name is Patricia Crislip and I am doing this video to tell my story of how I basically became chronically ill, disabled, however you would have it. Chronic illness, first of all, is, for those of you that do not know, is an illness that will not go away, and there is not a cure per se for it. There are ways of controlling or minimizing the effects of the illness. However, it is a lifelong illness that does not go away. So, the reason I decided to do this video is because today is the 11-year anniversary of me becoming chronically ill, and I have come to accept what has happened to me and the fact that it is not going to go away, and it is a lifelong problem, which has come to me through a lot of tears and prayers and fighting my reality for years. And over those years, I have come to learn that I want to help people like me. I want to tell my story so that others can see it's okay to tell their story and that they are not alone. And I want to say that again. If you have a chronic illness of any kind, you are not alone. You are not alone in this. There is a lot of us out there, and there are many of us who are very willing to help you. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and tell my story. So, June 25th, 2008, like any other day back then for me, I was at a church function helping do arts and crafts with my kids and some other kids that were in my neighborhood. And I began feeling sick to my stomach, like maybe I had ate something, or flu-y type feeling, like nauseous, and just did not feel well. So I decided to go home. However, by the time I got home, I was having severe pain above my belly button, let me say the word correct, and it was becoming increasingly more severe, and by that time I was vomiting uncontrollably. And at first I tried to stay in the bathroom, was like, I'm gonna be okay, it's gonna pass, I just ate something, but the pain kept getting worse and worse and worse, and it felt like a hot serrated knife being punctured above my belly button all the way through to my back. So my husband at the time took me to the hospital, and we were in the waiting room for a while, and I started vomiting blood and getting a little disoriented, and the pain was getting to a point that I didn't even know it was humanly possible to feel that level of pain. And I am being so serious with you. I have delivered 4 children, and this pain trumps that by far. It was terrible. And they eventually get me back and run some blood work and run some tests, and come to find out that my amylase and lipase, which are enzymes that are released by your pancreas, were extremely elevated, way beyond what they were supposed to be, in the thousands, as opposed to, I believe they're supposed to be in the normal is like lower hundreds. And if anybody hears this and I'm wrong, please correct me. However, anyways, so they said I had what is called pancreatitis, or an inflammation of your pancreas. And to be honest with you, like, I knew we had a pancreas, and I knew, like, sort of what it did and whatnot, but I did not at this time have any clue to how important your pancreas is for survival. As far as it has two functions in controlling your insulin and controlling your digestive enzymes when you eat, drink, or anything. When you open your mouth to do any form of ingesting anything, it activates your pancreas and tells it to start releasing enzymes that you need them. So, I was in, they began me on a pain pump and lots of IV fluids, and we're trying to go at it as anyone would for pancreatitis, because that is the normal way that they go at it, is rest the pancreas, fluids, pain medicine. However, 4 days into being at my local hospital, things were increasingly getting worse. I was getting to the point where I didn't have any function of myself at all. I could not shower myself. I could not do anything on my own without help. And so they decided they needed to send me to a bigger hospital that was a little bit further away from home, that had more experienced doctors in pancreas issues and such. And so they sent me there, and I was there for a day and a half, a couple days, something like that. And some of the details get fuzzy because I was incredibly sick at this point in time, and a lot of things I had to go back and ask people or go back to my medical records, which I have them. They are massive, but I have them. And I've had to like fill in the blanks for myself over the last 11 years. So when I get there, they explain to me that my pancreas is swollen, and it is 3 times the size that it's supposed to be, and that it needs rest to the point where I needed a feeding tube, and I needed weeks of nothing by mouth to let my pancreas settle and the swelling to go down, and things of that nature, so that I could start healing and getting better. And so I agreed to the feeding tube, and they did what is called a J tube, which ran from right above, it was like above my belly button to the right a little bit, and it ran from outside of my stomach and all the way through. It passed through my stomach and down into my jejunum. And for those of you who do not know what a jejunum is, you're going to have to Google that one. It is basically a part of your colon area. And it was, the idea of the feeding tube was to bypass any digestive parts that I would use, so that the food that I needed would just go directly to where it needed to go, instead of triggering my pancreas to work at all during that time. And this is the time in my life that I learned that when you drink or eat or chew gum or suck on a piece of candy or anything of that nature, it activates your pancreas right away and tells it to start getting ready to prepare for what you are ingesting. So originally when I got the feeding tube, it was supposed to be for 6 weeks, a couple months, something like that, just long enough for my pancreas to calm down, and then it could be removed and I could start on clear liquids and work my way up and go back to a regular diet eventually. However, during those 6 weeks, I kept having pancreatitis flares, which is what we call them. And it's where the pancreas starts backing up enzymes into the pancreas and causes severe pain. And there's a lot of technical things about that that are hard to explain in one video. So, basically they said that we're just going to leave the feeding tube in until your pancreas swelling goes completely down, and we're not scared you're in the red zone anymore, that it's going to cause pancreatitis when you eat, because as long as there's swelling, it will just continue to have flares. So it was about 7 months total that I had the feeding tube in, and they said that it was time to remove it, and that we would start on clear liquids, and we would work our way up to bland food, and then stair step my way up to having a regular diet again. Excuse me, there's something in my eye. And so they removed the feeding tube, and I was extremely happy because I thought, great, I'm going to get my life back now. Everything's going to go back to normal. I was 24 years old, so I was young, naive, and didn't even realize that it could even get any worse than what had just happened to me. So when I went home and I was starting on the clear liquid diet, and I was like doing chicken broth and jello and things, I noticed that when I was eating and drinking, it was coming out of the hole where the feeding tube had been, in which they did explain to me that it could take time to heal from the inside out to close the hole completely, and that this might happen. However, weeks went by. Finally, 3 weeks, I went to the doctor and explained, look, this is what's happening. They had been giving me a bag that was used for colostomies, but it was being put over the hole where the feeding tube was. And they told me that I had developed what is called a fistula, or a intracutaneous fistula to be exact, or an ECF. And basically what that means is that my body, stomach, all of those things grew around the feeding tube because of the amount of time that the feeding tube had been in there. Instead of being a short-term thing, it had been in there a long-term thing, and my body, when it was trying to heal, just healed around it instead of separately. Like, my stomach was basically connected to my outer skin part of my stomach. And I was having problems with leaking of acidic gastric fluids and things like that was burning and causing irritation, and it was a mess. And so my GI doctor at the time explains to me that that I needed to have what is called a fistula repair. And they said that basically they would go in there and they would cut where the hole had formed. I'm sorry, this is a little bit hard to talk about. And they would close the hole to my stomach with staples, and they would close this hole with the hole where it came out with stitches, and the hole where it went into my jejunum with staples as well. And no, I believe they were going to do that with stitches. Sorry, like I said, some of the details are fuzzy. But anyway, so they were like, it's going to be a surgery, the 1-day surgery, outpatient. You can come in the morning. It's going to take a little while, but by that night you should be able to go home. And I was like, cool, let's do it. They explained to me that there was some risks, but they were minimal. And anybody who's had a surgery has heard this speech. There is some risks, but it is minimal. Well, let me tell you something. Those risks that they tell you about are real. They're real. And so they did the surgery, and they ended up sending me home that night. And I was in a lot of pain, but I thought it was just related to the surgery in general, and that it would just pass. However, after that night, I woke up the next morning and I could not breathe. And the pain was much more worse than it was when I had went to bed that night. And I hadn't slept very well, and I was really, really struggling to breathe. So I thought that maybe I had developed pneumonia from the surgery, from being put to sleep, because that is one of the risk factors that they had warned me about prior to the surgery. So again, I go to my local hospital, and they explained to me that they do not feel safe dealing with this issue, and they rushed me to the hospital that is further away. And this is where I do not remember much, and I had to figure out later what happened. I remember them taking me, and this is the last thing I remember. I remember them taking me into a CT scan at the bigger hospital, and that's the last thing I remember. I woke up in a room with tubes everywhere, IVs everywhere, staples across my stomach, these little tubes with bulbs on the end that I later found out were called ticks. There was like 6 of them in my stomach, and they were basically draining stomach acid out of my abdominal cavity, because what had happened where they put the staples in my stomach to try to correct the fistula, the pressure in my stomach basically pushed them back out and ruptured my stomach open. It like popped them out, like pop, 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 and just brought the whole incision open. And stomach acid was leaking all in my abdominal cavity, and it was getting on the bottom of my lungs, which is why they explained to me that I couldn't breathe. It was basically burning my lungs. And they explained to me that, I had stomach acid in my abdominal cavity, and they were unsure of the damage that was done at this point, but we were going to take it step by step and get the stomach acid out of my abdominal cavity and work towards getting myself healed and take it step by step. And I was in the hospital maybe 3 weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks. And they released me to go home, and I feel like I wasn't told that I was going to continuously always have problems, but I feel like we didn't know as much then as we do now about exactly what happened. Because in the beginning, when I had the initial pancreatitis on June 25th, 2008, they thought that it was because I had gallstones from where I had my gallbladder removed the year before, and that gallstones had gotten in my pancreas from then and were causing problems. However, through a procedure called an ERCP, they found out that I had what is called pancreatic divisum and sphincter of Oddi dysfunction, or SOD, which pancreatic divisum is where your pancreas basically forms together as 2 pieces instead of one whole piece, and there is, I'm going to call it tissue, for a lack of a better word, that runs through the duct that releases my pancreatic enzymes. So sometimes it will swell and block the duct and make the enzymes back up in my pancreas. A lot of people have pancreatic divisum and do not have a problem with it ever in their life. However, someone who has had what I had, which is called necrotizing pancreatitis, which means that the enzymes were basically killing or damaging, or some people have called it eating away at my pancreas and damaging it beyond repair in those places. And so that has caused the problem to become originally what they thought was chronic pancreatitis, and it depends on the doctor you ask, honestly. One doctor that I see believes that it is absolutely chronic pancreatitis. Another doctor that I see believes that it is damage that is caused from the initial pancreatitis and from my stomach basically rupturing open, is the words that they used when they explained what happened to me. And that the stomach acid and all that stuff has caused damage that is not repairable, and the surgery, scar tissues, and things that cannot be fixed. So it depends on who you ask. One says chronic pancreatitis, one says damage. To me, it doesn't matter. I have continuous flares that will never, ever, ever stop in my life. And I have problems eating. I have problems digesting food. I could tell you the list could go on and on and on of the problems that I have, but essentially, because of these things, I have malnutrition and maldigestion when I eat, or depending on the situation and the day and frankly, how my pancreas feels. If she wants to be a functioning pancreas or she doesn't. That is how my life is. And my stomach as well. Um, and because of my stomach rupturing, I later found out that I had to have what is called a partial gastrectomy, which means they basically had to cut away that part of my stomach where the rupture had happened and close it up away from, like, they cut that away and then closed it up, which has caused weakening in my stomach walls and things of the such, and caused me to have what is called dumping syndrome. Some of you might know what that is, but that is part of my GI issues. And because of the malnutrition and maldigestion, over the years I have developed what is called hypercalciuria, which is basically a fancy word for I make kidney stones because I am lacking some of the things that my body needs to prevent the kidney stones. And over the years of having repeated kidney stones has led to, I guess you would say, damage to my kidneys, which has caused chronic kidney disease stage 2, which thankfully I have a good doctor for now, and she's got me on some medications that have sort of calmed down the kidney stones, and in retrospect is helping me not go further along in the chronic kidney disease process, I guess you would call it. I also have developed degenerative disc disease and bone spurs on my back and spinal stenosis because I have problems with vitamin D and calcium and things that other people do not have problems with. Vitamins do not help because I have a problem digesting them. However, over the years, I have slowly found a good team of doctors who are all working together now, and I'm starting to get more understanding at times, and I'm starting to get further in my treatment. Now I receive a celiac plexus block to sort of reduce the flares that I have, and it does help in some cases. However, they will always happen. It doesn't matter what they give me. There isn't a magic formula. There isn't a stop it pill. There is no stopping the damage that has happened. And that is my main reason for sharing my story, because I want other people to know that because you have a chronic illness, it doesn't mean that you chose it. I didn't choose this. And a lot of people hear me say pancreatitis and they automatically think alcoholic or alcoholism, and that is not the case. That is a stereotype. Please, guys, that is a stereotype for real. Pancreatitis does not automatically mean a person was alcoholic. There are many, 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 many causes of pancreatitis, and you would be surprised that some of the medications that doctors prescribe you cause pancreatitis and can change your life forever. You do not even understand the ramifications. Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic. However, I wanted to share my story and be brave enough to put myself out there so that I can start to grow and accept and come to peace with my disability, my chronic illness, and what has happened to me. And I'm hoping through my story that others will feel like they have somebody to turn to, somebody who understands, and that also that, like I said in the beginning, you are not alone. You are not alone. And I know with a chronic illness, that is the worst feeling, and it is the most common feeling. And that is what has led me to knowing that it is my time to share so that I can be free and help others. And I hope that this video has told you guys enough about my story to help you understand. I know that there's a lot of technical terms and things that don't make sense, and that Trust me, it has taken me many, many years, like I said, to read through my medical records and talk to doctors and surgeries and you name it, I've done it to try to get to where I'm at now. And now my goal is peace and to share what I have learned with others through my experiences. Thank you for watching my video.